Hi, in this section of video, we're going to learn about host groups and user management. So just to get a quick overview of how the future course will look like, we're going to learn what is host group, why are they so important in a Stealthwatch system, along with how do we do user management, what are the default users that pre-exist once you unbox any Stealthwatch appliances, how do you create custom users, and what all actions those custom users can do. So starting with the host group. Host group is basically a collection of the IP addresses. Host groups can only contain the IP addresses. It cannot contain any DNS names or it cannot contain any MAC addresses. It's just the IP addresses. The reason we have a host group is because a lot of actions are being performed on these host group as a collection. For example, you want to classify certain IPs as into one geographical location. You create another host group mentioning the IPs inside the particular host group and mention the name of the geographical location. For example, in future slides, we're going to create a host group on the basis of geographical location, that is Atlanta. You can also segregate them on the basis of their functions, what functions a set of IP should be performing, such as these are the financial, these are the IPs which are used by the finance department, or these are the IPs which are being used by the management, etc. Or you can create your own custom user-defined host groups and segregate them on the basis of what you want or on the basis of the requirement. This is entirely user-defined. The way you define a particular host group is there are four methods. First one is you can mention single IP addresses turn by turn that a particular host group can contain these certain list of IP address. Second option is hyphenated range. You can choose a hyphen and mention the first IP and the last IP of that particular range. Third option is a very standard CIDR notation. This is a RFC defined standard where you can use the /16/8 or /subnet number and mention that this entire subnet is inside one host group. And lastly, you can use a combination where you're using hyphenated along with the RFC defined CIDR notations. Do note that one catch with a hyphenated range or any combination with a hyphenated range is it can have only a single octet. The range can exist only in a single octet, meaning that if you notice here that it can mention from 1 to 255. You cannot go beyond 255. That's the meaning of single octet. So that's what host groups are. In a future slides, what we're going to be doing is we're going to be creating the host groups. By location, we're going to create Atlanta. By function, we're going to create PCI devices. These are user-defined. This is the name I choose. And there's certain predefined host group that exists into the system. These are mentioned above. Some of them are these: DNS server, vulnerability scanners, mail servers, time servers, public IP address space. They pre-exist into the system. Once we create the host group, we're going to learn about user management. So, as we discussed, there are three users which will pre-exist on all the Stealthwatch appliances. First one is admin. That's used for web interface, or the use for web administration interface, or for Java GUI. Admin will have a default password of LAN411 COPE. The other two users are only for SSH and the console access, sysadmin and the root. Both also have the same password, that is LAN1 COPE. And these users, they are there just to give you a CLI access and perform the action there. Root has full level access. It has access to shell as well, so it can make changes on the operating system level. Sysadmin, on the other hand, just can make changes towards the configuration management. It doesn't have access to the shell. Apart from these default users that pre-exist in your any Stealthwatch appliances, you can create your own users. Those are custom users. Along with it, you can mention what role each user will be playing on, or what all actions any user can do. In these actions, we have broadly classified these roles into two parts. First one is called data role, and the second one is called function rules. What data role contains is basically these are the sources from which you have access to the data. For example, in the last slide, we have created host group. So we can mention that data only regarding this particular host group, only this data have access to this particular user. Or you can mention that traffic coming from this appliance, only this appliance, then only give access to this particular traffic to a particular user. Function roles is the roles, it involves the graphs, the charts that we have created using the data. So it tells that a certain user can have access to those functions. It can be configuration functions or non-configuration functions, and there's a pre-list defined. We can choose a certain user can have access to which all function roles. In this particular video, we'll be creating 3 users. First one is SOC, that is Security Operational Center. Generally, they have access to read all the data, that is data coming from any sources, it doesn't matter. But they are not able to perform any config changes, so they have access to all the non-config functions. Second role is help desk. Help desk is generally specific to a geographical location, so they will be given access to any data coming to a specific host group, and that host group will be called Atlanta. And in the Atlanta, it will contain the list of IP addresses that are given to Atlanta specifically. Apart from it, they will have access to graphs, the conversations, the host snapshots, but specific to the Atlanta IP addresses. The third role we're going to create is SW admin. They have the complete access towards all the data, as well as they have complete access to all the configuration and non-configuration functions also. So moving on to the lab now. This is the Java GUI that will be, this is the first page. That's how I look at the moment you log into the Java GUI. FE training is a Stealthwatch domain that we created. This is the hierarchy. The moment we go inside the hierarchy of the FE training, we have host groups. And in host groups, these are the predefined host groups that exist. What is inside host, outside host? Now in the inside host, these are the one which are supposed to be trusted one, and we are considering them that these are the IPs which belongs to a customer. Notice the function is a predefined function called catch-all. This is a very special function to the Stealthwatch system. It means that it should have a list of all the IPs that belongs to a customer. Apart from generally what we do is we include all the private addresses plus the specific IP addresses that the specific public IP addresses the customer owns, so that many alarms can be avoided if the traffic is going from your private to public or public to private IP addresses which are the one which are owned by the customer. So let's add all the IP addresses that are owned by the customer here. So we'll go to catch-all, configuration, user management. Alright, so we have reached user management, sorry, we are into the host, configuration, edit host groups. It opened a separate page. This is the list of all the private IP addresses, and we're going to add a public IP address. In the last PPT, we noticed that this is the public IP address that belongs to the customer, so we will add that as an example. This is the IP address added to the catch-all function. We'll click OK. Your changes will be applied. Are you sure? Yes. And apply the changes. Now catch-all contains a list of all the IP addresses that are owned by a customer. We're going to create multiple host groups. If you want to add a single host group, you can just right click in that particular area, you know, configuration, add host group. It will add the host group in the hierarchy below. So similarly, we can go to any other host group. We can right click, configuration, sorry, just going by configuration, edit host groups, or we can go to the higher configuration, add host groups. Now, if you want to add a single host group, this is a very great way. But if you want to modify multiple host groups at the same time, then what we have to use is configuration editor. So host group edit, there's a host group editor that can be used, which can just select any host group and go to edit host to that edit particular host group. Alright, so this is the window that opens up. And now in the example that we're going to do is we're going to mention DNS IP address of our environment. So for that, the DNS server's host group is a predefined host group. We're just going to mention the IP address here. I'm going to mention the IP addresses that we have there, 10.10.30.15. Then we'll give a comma to mention the other one, 10.10.30.16. Alright, we'll just click OK. Yes, we are confirmed. And that's how you make the changes. Now, this is how you do the changes for the one. How about we do for multiple at the same time? So the other things that we can do is that we have to add is in network scanners, we have to add the mail servers, the NTP servers. Let's add them together. So network scanners. The moment you start typing, it will automatically search the entire hierarchy that for a pre-existing host group. I'll show the list here. So go to the network scanner. This particular host group is pretty important. The reason is because if you don't mention a network scanner specifically, then when authorized vulnerability scanning is appearing, it will trigger a lot of alarms. And those alarms will be the false positive since this is an authorized vulnerability scanning. In order to make sure that authorized vulnerability scanning alarms doesn't get triggered for a known scanner, such scenarios we should add that particular scanner inside the Stealthwatch domain inside the particular host group. So 10.203.0.207. We'll not click OK this time. We'll make multiple changes together. The next one is NTP. Let's see if NTP exists beforehand. NTP. Yep, NTP servers exist in this host group. We'll choose 10.10.30.10. The next one is mail server. Does mail server exist? Yep, mail also exists. Okay, 10.10.30.23. Alright, if you notice for the groups on which we have made the changes, those groups are now bold italic. This is a way of showing that these all server changes are being already performed, and this is how you will be. These are the places which have changes, and this is the places where you will be confirming the changes. So we'll click OK now, and yes, we're confirming it. Alright, this is how you modify multiple host groups together. How about let's add a different host group on the basis of the location, and let's create by the name Atlanta. Alright, so we'll name it Atlanta. It'll have the IP address, my particular technology, my particular domain will have an IP address of this range that we know about. And yes, here's how your Atlanta host group is created. Let's create another one on the basis of the function. This is the predefined one. So PCI devices. Ten dot 213.0/24. Alright. PCI devices is created. So this is how these host groups are being created. And now the next stop is about the user management. So let's go to a user. Here we are logged in through a user admin user. If you notice here, this is a predefined user which comes the moment you unbox your Stealthwatch appliance. The way we can change the password is we can go to the CLI and we can go to the CLI, mention password, and then the then the username, that is admin, and then change the password. And the other method for the admin users is we can also change it through GUI. Just go to manage. So we'll be opening the administrative appliance. All right. In this administrative appliance, we can click on manage users, change password. This change password is for the user in which you're logged in. Uh, by default, the moment you're doing ASD appliance setup tool, it'll make you change the password then and there. But if you want to change the password again, this is how you go about it. How about the users which have only the SSH console access, those predefined other users? That is your sysadmin and your root. We can do that through CLI. Let's try and do it by CLI. The command is pretty simple. Here we are logged in through the root access. So the command is password sysadmin. The name, that's the username. And it asks us for the U password. Retype the same one. Password is updated successfully. How about the root? Can we change the root username using the same technique? Yep. The command is same for both of them. So now we have changed the password for the default users as well. That's actually one of the compliance that many security organizations or many IT organizations have to go through. They cannot have the same password that comes with the box. They have to change the password manually. Now we move on to how to create the custom users. How do we create those 3 custom users that discussed earlier? First one is SOC, second one is helpdesk, and third one is SW admin. So the SOC user will be having access just to all the data, but it will not be able to perform any non-config functions. So in that case, we'll go to configurations, user management, and it opens a list that there's an admin user. This is the full name of the admin user, and it has all the privilege to all the functions. It can read, it can write, it can do anything. So we'll create our own user here for the SOC. Let's name it SOC. Full name will be Security Operations Center. Authentication will be yes, local. Email address, let's make it SOC admin @customer.local. Yep. We're going to make this user as enabled, and then data role. Let it have all the read privileges, and what functions can it perform? It can be a Stealthwatch power user. As you notice that these are predefined functions that exist in the Stealthwatch for both the roles. For data role, it has 2 options that you can read all the data, and you can read as well as make changes to the existing data. For the functions, it has permissions such as security powerhouse, where it can perform all the non-config actions that are predefined, or configuration managers, network engineer, security analyst. We'll look into these roles independently in the future, in a couple of seconds. So that's how we create one of the users SOC. It'll ask for the password. That's the current password through which I'm logged into the entire Stealthwatch system. Now the password, I'm going to give it to the SOC user. Here my SOC is being created and it's enabled. It can work. Secondly is we're going to create a user for the help desk. If you notice, help desk, and for the specific help desk user, what you want to do is we want to make sure that it has access to read all the data, but only from Atlanta IP addresses. So let's go to the data rules there. It has a list of predefined functions, but it doesn't have any function that gives me that control using the host group. We're going to create our own data rule then. Let's name it help desk data role. Help desk can access. All right, so we have created a host group with the name Atlanta. Let's see if we find here. It was by location. Yep, here it is by location. And second, let's include all the outside host as well. So outside host. So you can have access to the data which are being created using these host groups. Let's click on OK. Now let's go to the function rule. Let's create a function rule where a help desk user is able to only look at the traffic graphs, top conversations, snapshots, and flow table, and nothing else. Currently, it has 5 roles. First role is all; it can do anything. The rest of the 4 roles, first one is configuration manager, name suggestions that it can configure the appliances. Second is network engineer; it can view all the contents. Security analyst is the one who's very focused towards the security, what all vulnerabilities are being hit, what all operations, shadow IT operations are being performed. That's for security analyst. And Stealthwatch power user, as told earlier, that it can again view all the functions, but it cannot perform any configuration items. So let's create our own role where the user is able to specifically do only a certain task, and these are a list of the tasks that for which a role can be defined. So let's give it a name first. Help desk functions approved for the help desk. All right, so let's look at top flow conversations that it can perform. It can look at what are the top conversations that are happening for that particular host group. Let's see, let's make it host snapshots as well. Where is this host snapshot? We can look at you can take the snapshot of the host. What is the current profile? What is the current status of the host? What all vulnerabilities, scans are being hit for that particular host, basically. So let's scroll it down a little more. Host snapshot. Here it is. You can look at the host snapshots. It can look at the flow traffic. Let's bring it down. We have flow table as well. Documents, view idea, editing, status. Can you look at the status, host. You can look at the traffic. What is the traffic, flow traffic for that particular host? Let's click on OK. So we've created another user with our name help desk functions. Now it's time, we have created another rule, sorry. Now it's time to create a user which utilizes these 2 rules. I'll create a name, help desk. Full name is help desk user. Authentication local. Let's give it an email address of helpdesk @customer .local. Alright, so data role, we have created third role that we see here, helpdesk data role. That's a user defined one. And here we create another function, helpdesk function. Alright, click on OK. It'll ask for the password. As it asks for the SOC. The first password we are typing here is the password through which we logged into the system, and these 2 passwords are for those specific users. Alright, click on OK. Now third and lastly is we're going to create a role with the name SWAdmin, which has complete access to the entire system. It has access for all the data. It has access for performing all the configuration functions, non-configuration functions. So let's click on add. That's a user-defined name. SWAdmin software trader SWAdmin local. This time we're going to select SMC manager. SMC manager means that it gives you full control over all the objects in the SMC, and any object that's created on the SMC manager will have access to that. If you notice, the moment I click on the SMC manager, the data role and the function rules become disabled, because it's a way of saying that you cannot now segregate which all functions you can have access to or not, because you have access to all and every functions along with all the data in the which is controlled through the SMC. We will click OK. Alright, so now we have created these three roles: help desk, SOC, SW admin. One of the queries that I generally get is that SW admin has very similar access to a admin predefined role. How is it different from an admin which is predefined? All the functions that can be performed by the SW admin can be performed by the admin as well, but there are very specific abilities, very certain abilities that exist with the admin which doesn't exist with any user defined rule such as SW admin. Those abilities normally come into the picture when you open up a case with a Stealthwatch support, and there are certain functions that only admin can perform which any other user defined role cannot. So in such scenarios, the admin user comes into the picture, admin comes in handy. In other scenarios, whatever any user management is when is informed, or anything related to a data management, your SW admin can do the same. So we click on close. So we have created these three users. Now it's time to go on the GUI and see what changes happens when you log into the users one by one. So we'll go to the web GUI. This is the web GUI. Let me refresh it once. We're going to log out from the admin access right now, and we are logging through the help desk access just to get started with. And let's see what all changes are being performed, what all views, what all differences there as compared to the other scenarios. All right, let it open up. All right, so the user right now is admin. Just to see, currently we have all the options are currently available to configure Cisco wise, Active Directory, network classifications, job managements, analyze, monitor, and dashboards. And let's log out. Let's log back in. Help desk, Cisco. All right, is there something different? Let's do one thing. Let's have a look at our users right now once more. Configuration, user management. Let's see, where is it wrong? Oh, it's a capital H. Let's try now with a capital H. Right. Now we are logging in as an help desk user, which have access only to the data from the Atlanta IP addresses. Notice earlier there was some data being fetched here, there was some graph being showing, but now right now there's no data to display because there's no data that's being created using the Atlanta. If you notice on the top, the configuration options that we used to have earlier, we used to have a deploy option for ICE and for Active Directory, that is not there. So any configuration action, those have been missing. Only the monitoring actions are still available with us. So even the setting options where you can move on to the Stealthwatch administrative appliance, even that option is also went away. So similarly for other users, you will have any privileges that you have given to them, only those privileges will be available to them, and the privileges if not mentioned specifically doesn't exist with the system. Uh, so in this video, we have learned how to create host groups, what is the purpose that host group exists, and how to do user management and how to define a certain roles to a specific user or edit those roles. Thank you.